few weeks ago, we featured a memory from BBC Radio London, the Scout Rap.
Listen up to the funky woggle beats where the boys in the shorts and we can't be beat.
Franco Walker said, that was certainly of its time, laughing out loud.
Wonderful Radio London, Big L.
This time, our voice from the past comes from the other Radio London, Pirate Radio London, Big L.
Wonderful Radio London.
Today's voice from the past is a best-loved British sport personality. Here's a clue.
Let's motor with Moss.
Motor with Moss was broadcast on Radio London on Saturday mornings.
Welcome to our series of motoring programs brought to you at this time each and every Saturday, featuring hints and information for motorists, latest news of the automotive industry, mingled with the moving sounds of the Radio London Fabulous 40. So let's motor with Moss.
Today, we remember Motor with Moss from 1964, presented by racing driver Stirling Moss. Motor with Moss was broadcast on Radio London on Saturday mornings. This edition included advice on buying a new car.
Well, I think it's such a personal thing, it's difficult to say. I mean, one man's very keen on particularly good performance, another person on looks and so on. But I think the things that matter to all of us, obviously, are comfort, that you should be comfortable in the car and on long distances and so on. And the visibility should be good. I think you should have adequate power. I think the brakes should be good, the steering should be good, obviously, and that the car does exactly what you want. In other words, if you want something for town, you don't go and buy a big American car. If you want something as a station wagon, you, again, consider that, or a van. You wouldn't buy a small utility vehicle. I think, therefore, a person's got to sort of sit down with their wife or friends and sort of say, well, what is going to suit us best? You may want a four-wheel drive. Who knows? Jeep might suit you best.
Sir Stirling Moss was born in 1929. He won a record 212 official races across several motorsport disciplines, including 16 Formula One Grand Prix. Born and raised in London, Moss was the son of amateur racing driver Alfred Moss and the older brother of rally driver Pat Moss. Aged 9, his father bought him an Austin 7, which he raced around the field of the family's country house. He bought a Cooper 500 in 1948, and Stirling Moss joined Mercedes in 1955. Back to the Big L programme, where the subject then moves to rival John Surtees.
I mean, John Surtees, as those of you who follow the sport will know, that towards the end of last year he had a big shunt in Canada at the track Mossport, where he had trouble with one of the wheels on his Lola. We had terrible rumours at one time that he was going to die and so on, and now John has gone to won his second race within a week, I think it is.
There was some talk that he might not be able to lead the Ferrari team this year, but I think he's proved that he will.
Well, I think he's not only leading them, he's leading them to victory at the moment, because, of course, they were a first-second win at Syracuse last week, but I feel that we shouldn't be too impressed by this, because Syracuse was an early race. There were not that many really good cars and really good drivers, although there were some. And I think you want to remember that when the season gets going properly, they're all going to be there, and I think, therefore, it will be more difficult to have the success that John had last week. But nevertheless, I don't wish to decry it. I think it is a tremendous achievement. Now, of course, the difficult thing, the important thing, is the 100 laps round Monte Carlo. That's going to be next week. So this is going to be a fantastic race. What's going to happen, nobody knows. It's the first race, true race in a big way, of the new formula.
Let's not forget Pirate Radio London was a commercial radio station, and you didn't have to wait long before a sneaky word from their sponsor crept in.
Stirling, you've talked a lot on this programme about taking care of cars, and we've had piles of letters saying how useful some of your hints have been. I'd like to draw your attention to a letter we got last week from Julian Oldridge in St Helier in Jersey, who asked if you could recommend any detergent or soap powder which he could put in the water when he washes his car.
Well, Julian, I think the straightforward answer to that, really, is that you shouldn't use detergents or washing powder as such to wash your car with, as you might possibly harm the paintwork. But, there are some good washing liquids around, and I suggest you try one of them. It's much safer in the long run anyway.
Well, perhaps I can butt in here and recommend that you use Zip Wax, Julian. It has been produced specially for your problem. It really is the most remarkable stuff. All you do is put a little Zip Wax in the water that you're washing your car with, and not only will it help enormously when you wash the car, but it actually wax polishes the car as you're washing it.
There's your answer, Julian.
I have a copy of the Radio London advertising rate card for the Stirling Moss programme in front of me. A 60-second advert, £300. A 90-second advert, £450. And a 15-second mention, £100. Remember, these are 1964 prices, so I think that must have cost Zipwax £100. We've just mentioned them for free. Next, the topic turned to taxes and the budget, and a conversation that sounds almost topical and very similar to the debate which has dominated political discussion throughout the first part of 2025.
Stirling, just a week or two after the budget, I'd like to ask you a question whether you think the cost of motoring will increase as regards to the payroll tax.
Well, Maggie, it's got to. I mean, I have a garage and we employ labour, and I've got to pay each man this much more, this 25 bob a week more, whatever it is. And obviously this has got to be passed on. One can't, unless you were making a tremendous profit before this announcement, you can't just suddenly say, well, we're going to pay this much more, unless we pass it on to the customer. The customer, therefore, has to pay more, therefore his motoring costs more, the delivery of petrols, the forecourt attendants, all these sort of people. So I think it must do. I think this must, in my opinion, force up the cost of living, and through the motorist and in every other way.
In 1990, Stirling Moss was inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame. In the New Year's Honours List for 2000, Stirling Moss was made a Knight Bachelor for services to motor racing. Stirling Moss died at his home in London on the 12th of April 2020, aged 90. His name lives on in popular culture. How many people have been stopped for speeding by police only to be asked the rhetorical question, "Who do you think you are, Stirling Moss?"